Welcome to this week's installment of Reading with Robin, your number one destination since 2002 for insightful author interviews and discussions on everything literary. And with no further introduction, your host, Robin Call.
For our times, put this one on your list. Do not miss The Beekeeper of Aleppo. I am so excited to be speaking with author Christy Lefteri right now. She is a child of Cypriot refugees. She's a lecturer in creative writing at Brunel University. The Beekeeper of Aleppo was born out of her time working as a volunteer at a UNICEF-supported refugee center in Athens. She's also the author of a novel, A Watermelon, a Fish, and a Bible. And we've been having the most fun talking off air, and I'm bringing her on to share The Beekeeper of Aleppo with the Reading with Robin audience. Welcome to the show, Christy.
Thank you for inviting me. Hello.
Such a pleasure. I was, now this is where I say, okay, this is all the really great stuff Christy and I talked about before we let everybody in on the conversation. So I feel like you and I are already in the middle of this chat.
Well, we were talking about desserts and sweets and food,
if there's anything we all can connect on, it's food.
It's how it brings people together, and the fact that I was talking about these lovely dough balls that I mentioned in the story, and they're Arabic. I was trying to figure out how to pronounce it. Actually, it's lugamat dough balls, but in Greek we have the same ones in Cyprus called logmadas, and my grandma used to make them, and it just conjures up. I think food has just the ability to conjure up these lovely memories and bring people together.
It really does, and I think that's one of the reasons. Well, certainly in book clubs, when there's food mentioned in a book, people love to make the items that are in the book, and or a loose interpretation. I remember going back to the Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Society. I don't know if you remember that book. Try making a potato peel pie. You can't.
Okay.
So that was when we had to interpret. But when people bring foods to these events and they start talking about their childhood memories, and when there are different cultures and represented, and you realize how similar so many of the foods are, to me just is a bigger picture of let's just focus on where we're the same. And so that's where I think food meets all of that. And so I loved reading about the food in this book, and that's always something that's of interest. And thank you for sharing that. So now, do you make these yourself? I know you said they're deep fried, and so
I've actually never made them. No, I've never made them. They're delicious. So they're these little dough balls that you deep fry. They're kind of as light as air, and then you dip them in syrup. And I've never made them myself, but my grandma used to make them. But the part in the story where it's mentioned, because Mustafa and Nuri, who are best friends and cousins and business partners in the novel, they get together every Saturday, which is the equivalent of a Sunday in Syria, and they make food together and they eat together. And the sad thing is that Nuri remembers this because this is what's lost when the war starts. So there's a real kind of sadness to it as well, that these are the most beautiful things in life, and then when something like a war happens, those are the things that Nuri remembers because of the sadness of the loss.
And that's the thing to me that rings so true, is that the everyday moments that, of course, we take for granted, the simplest things, the routine, the time spent together, you almost don't know. So much importance could be placed on that. When it's not there, it's gaping hole. And
do you know? Yeah. I was going to. What you've just said has kind of got me thinking, because when I was working in the refugee center in Athens, I found that there were people coming from Syria mostly, but also from Afghanistan, and they'd arrive in Athens and come to the center. So they were staying in the camps, and they'd come to the center in order to. It was just for women and children, and they'd come there in order to have a shower or to have some tea and biscuits. There was an area for children to play, and it was I found that these little things, these everyday little things, like making a cup of tea, we served biscuits, we didn't have a food license, that became like a rhythm, like a daily rhythm, and it became so important. So I got to know who wanted sugar in their tea, who wanted milk, who didn't like it with milk, who wanted the plain biscuits, who wanted the chocolate biscuits. And somehow that became like almost the most important part of the day, like what biscuits this person liked and what biscuits that person liked. And it just helped people. These little routines help people to get slightly more settled, even though they still were far from settled because they were living in the camps. But I just realized how important those little things were.
Oh, I love that, because it's an unimaginable time with nothing being right and everything being upside down. So it's these routines that humanity will cling to, and those connections. And I was reading I was online reading some of the articles that have come out about the Beekeeper of Aleppo, and you can people can Google that and also find out more about the book at beekeeperofaleppo.com. And some of so the way those stories tied in, it was really beautiful. Reading the book is the best part, and then doing some of the research about how the book comes to be and all of the connections is, I go down that rabbit hole, and I go from this to that, and I've just become, it's just fascinating, because when I love a book, of course you want more. So there's all those parts, and it's really just gorgeous, and it's the Beekeeper of Aleppo, and it's just out now in the States. Now, when did it come out in the UK?
In May.
Oh, so it's still okay. I wasn't sure if it was pretty new. Yeah, and you the beautiful U.S. cover here. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's stunning, isn't it? I love it. I love those colors.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I was telling Christy off air, when I was in New York for the Book Expo, there were posters, hanging up of all the books coming out, and this one I was sitting there talking to one of the publicists, and my eye, being at the Book Expo is dizzying enough with all of the book covers and all of the energy, and I just kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by that cover. I need that book. What is that book? When is that book coming out? So we do judge by the cover. We do. It's the truth. We just do. We can't lie about that anymore. Absolutely. Right. They put enough time and effort into it. It is true. We do absolutely judge. And it is this is a book for everybody. I mean, it can't, tie it into certainly what's happening today. And then you mentioned the cousins, Nuri and Mustafa. Mustafa. I was thinking of the child, Muhammad, Mustafa, and Nuri. So we'll get to the characters, but you got the idea, certainly working in this camp in Athens, and how timely this is, and how important this kind of book is, and why everybody should be reading The Beekeeper of Aleppo, and how storytelling connects us all and allows us to, learn and have a thoughtful discussion. And also with storytelling, I think, because I think before I went to Athens, I was watching all this on the news, and I didn't realize how immune I became to all the facts that we're kind of bombarded with, statistics and, the way that refugees are portrayed in the media. But I think when we're reading, we live with those characters. We walk in their shoes. And it takes longer to read a book than it does to watch a film. So we're living with those characters for a while. Yeah. And I think, that's for me, that's the thing with storytelling, that when I'm reading a book that I absolutely love, I feel like I'm really living with those characters. And I think that really helps me to empathize more with whatever it is that those characters are going through, or what conflicts they have, or what traumas they faced. And I really think that's what the beauty of storytelling is. Empathy is everything. And I agree. You are spending so much time. Well, not if you read like I do, which is where I can't get off once I'm reading a book, and so it doesn't go on for days and days usually.
Oh, I'm such a slow reader. I've tried to speed up, but then I thought, why? I'll just read slowly and enjoy this.
I wish, the thing is, I try and get in a lot of books because of what it is that I do, but mostly it's just more telling of my personality where when I love something, I want to soak it up and share it with everybody. Yeah. And I think just one more page, just one more bite, just one more little piece. Yeah. And then I'm like, who am I fooling, and the whole bunch is gone. So that's kind of how it goes with a book when I'm loving it. If I'm reading it slowly, probably means I should put it down. For me.
All right. Or for you, yeah.
For me, yeah. For me. For everybody else, enjoy them. Take your time. Luxuriate in it. But that is the idea. But these characters so quickly got deep into my heart, and so they are there. But I agree. You watch these all the footage, and you just so much to read in the newspaper, and all of the information coming. You can get a little bit, it's overwhelming. So it gets tuned out when there's such real story there that is so important for people to know about these real people behind these stories. They're not just what some people would lead us to believe that they are. And so I can only imagine the discussions that will come out of this book. What are you hearing so far from the people that have already gotten the book since it's out in the UK?
Oh, I've had such great feedback. It's been absolutely amazing. I mean, I think it was number 1 in Ireland for about 8 weeks.
Congratulations.
It's number 2 now.
That's awesome.
Might be a bit longer than that. I can't remember, but it's number 2 now. It was number 10. It was in the top 10 in the UK. I've had brilliant reviews. And I know I shouldn't really do this, but I kind of check my reviews on Amazon and Goodreads.
You know what? This is a safe place to be honest. I can't imagine. I know they tell people, like, don't check, don't go on, don't look. But, I mean, how can you not?
Oh, I look. And you know what? Sometimes if there are negative reviews, sometimes you learn from stuff as well. You go, all right, okay, that was interesting. That's an interesting point. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with reading reviews. You've just got to be ready for the fact that, of course, with everything, there's going to be good and bad. But the response that I've had so far has just been absolutely phenomenal. I've been just completely over the moon by it. When you're writing, you don't expect it, or you don't think ahead that much. Mm-hmm. You just write the book.
Sure. Right.
So, so I've been really blown away by the response here in the UK and in Ireland.
I'm so happy to hear that. The other thing to say about the reviews online from people, you have to, the good ones you take because those are true, but the other ones, if there are any negative comments, some of those are like bots. They're not even people, or they're just these trolls. So that's how I would just relegate anything that isn't pleasing to you to a troll and just move along, because the book is fabulous. The story is so full of heart and thoughtfulness and real, just you could tell that these characters have come to mean so much to you.
Yeah, I can hear that in the reviews that I'm reading, that if when I have gone onto Amazon and Goodreads and had a look, I've just thought, wow, this has really touched people. Yeah. And I read one review after another, and sometimes when I'm reading them, I think, I can't believe that people are saying this about, it's difficult sometimes to kind of connect with the fact that, do you see? But I think what's really touched me is that people have been touched by the story, and that they seem to absolutely love Nuri and Afra, and can feel for them, and that's really what I wanted. You've
written a book that makes us. You have. You've written a book that makes us feel, and the heart is just on every page, and also the way that the story is told with the viewpoints and going back and forth, and there's just a real melody, a rhythm sort of carrying it. It's very poetic, and the language is just gorgeous. And to talk about the characters, a few of them, we never give away spoilers, of course, on the show, so I'm not worried about that happening. But I would love to know who you started with, where the nugget of the story started, and where you went from there.
So when I got the idea for the story, it was I was in Athens 2016 and 2017. And when I was there in 2016, so I had to leave at one point, go back to the UK because I needed to work, and then go back to Athens. So the first year that I was there, I was working in the centre. It was a drop-in centre. I was whizzing around. New people were coming in every day. It was really chaotic. And I was so overwhelmed and moved by what I saw, the children, how brave they were. And I just started to kind of think, God, because often my response to writing, to events that overwhelm me is to write. I've always been like that since I was a little girl. So I thought, God, I might want to write something about this. That was my first thought. I thought maybe I could write something, but I couldn't then because I was going home and I was absolutely exhausted. And I remember I left kind of one Facebook message saying, "Oh, I'm in Athens. This is what's going on here. This is what everything is like. I'll write again." And I didn't write on Facebook again because it was just so overwhelming. Yeah. And then, but I knew I wanted to write about it. And I thought, as I was working at the centre, I started to get this image. And it wasn't based on anyone that I'd met. It was just kind of inspired by the people I'd met and the stories I'd heard. I just started getting an image of a man, and he'd walked into a house that was crumbling in Aleppo, and he was holding a gift for his wife, which was a pomegranate, and his wife was sitting on the bed where their son used to sleep, and he offers her and she's blind, and he offers her the pomegranate as a gift, and she fills it with her fingers. And I just this was just a scene in my mind. I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't even know who exactly the characters were, what they were like. And I just left that image in my mind and continued to work. Came back to the UK, by which time I'd heard loads of stories and seen loads of things that had disturbed me. And then the characters just started coming to life. It's almost like Nuri started to move. And this man and this woman who became Afra, his wife, started to interact, and then a backstory kind of developed in my mind. And that was the seed of it. That's how it happened. Wow. And then I decided, at that point, I thought, well, I can't let go of these characters. I feel so attached to them. So I thought, well, how am I going to do this? I need to learn more. I need to learn more about the culture. So I decided to learn Arabic for a year.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's
so
talk about
really
immersion.
Hard. Yeah, I was, I'm a bit like a method actor when I'm writing. I need to kind of, So I found this tutor, Ibrahim, who himself was a refugee too. Actually ended up being a refugee from Aleppo. I didn't know this when I found him.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. So what happened was he started telling me about Syria before the war. I told him I was writing a novel. He kept encouraging me to write it and not stop. And he was teaching me Arabic. I learned such interesting things about the language, like how beautiful and metaphorical it is. Yeah. And he was helping me with all the bits in Syria because I couldn't go to Syria. So we'd open maps and he'd be like, right, so you're going to start here. Where do you want to get to? And I'd show him, and he'd tell me what the trees were like, what the land was like. So he helped me with the bit in Syria.
Connection and resource.
I know.
It started with the language.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, because I said, he said, why do you want to learn the language if you're not going to write in Arabic, obviously? And I was like, no way,
Yeah.
I just managed to say hello in the morning, and, But I said to him, because I want to connect, I want to, when you learn a language, you understand something about the rhythm of the beauty of a culture. And he used to invite me to, and talking about food, he used to invite me to Syrian breakfast. So like once a month in Acton, in London, there was a Syrian breakfast in this restaurant. And I don't even know if I should call it breakfast, because it was like a king's feast. Oh,
I can't even imagine.
My God.
Like, it's just like to be connected to that because you wanted to learn Arabic. Like that, you wouldn't have known that was there, I'm sure.
Oh no, it was Ibrahim that introduced me to all these things because he knew I wanted to connect and learn. And so that's where I kind of tasted the food and met people and met other people that were doing amazing things in London with kind of refugees and finding ways to help refugees to tell their stories in very creative ways. So as I kind of got more into learning Arabic, going to Syrian breakfast, talking to Ibrahim, the characters just absolutely came to life in my mind. That was it. They blossomed at that point. I could see them, I could feel them. Yeah, so Nuri, I was kind of debating, do I write this from Nuri's perspective? Do I write it from Afra's perspective? But it was Nuri's voice that I heard, so it had to be Nuri. And I tried to write some parts from Afra's perspective, but I realized that I can't give too much away, but there's a reason why.
Yes. Right.
There was a reason why, but I'm not going to say more.
No.
There's a reason why I couldn't write. I couldn't include Afra's perspective, but I'm not going to say more.
Well, you'll have to just read The Beekeeper of Aleppo, and you will figure out why that is. And I'm speaking with Christy Lefteri, and this book is just out, and it is just gorgeous. And go to beekeeperofaleppo.com, and you can find Christy on Twitter and, would you say Instagram too? You're there?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I am on Instagram. Yeah, I mean, I haven't used it for a while, but I am.
I was going to say, I think there's one picture. I think there might be one picture of this book in the UK, or I think that's what I saw. But I liked it.
There were loads of stuff on it. People have been coming up to me going, "Your book's all over Instagram," and I was like, "Really? I haven't been on it. I need to go on it and have a look." So I do have an account. But I'm just not using it.
Oh, okay. I probably have to hit hashtag because I went by your name. Maybe it's under. But people do love to photograph. If they tag it properly, then everybody gets to see it. And I always encourage the listeners, if you love a book, the best thing you can do with the book and to get it out into the hands of more readers, and it's such a wonderful thing to do for your favorite authors, is photograph them, tag them, ask at your library if the book is available, if the bookstores have them. All of those things are so important, and I would absolutely put this so high on your list. If you're having a book club, and a lot of times book clubs at the end of the summer start picking for the next reading season. The 2020 reading season is upon us. So put The Beekeeper of Aleppo at the top of your list, and you'll be the rock star of your book club, because everyone will say, "Oh my God, you picked the best book ever."
The book clubs here have loved it. I have to say, I've had such a great response.
Such a wonderful book club pick, and I love to highlight those on Reading with Robin, because I know there are a lot of book clubs that listen to these suggestions and pick those for their book clubs, and there's so much to talk about in this book. So the beekeeper element and how you connected the thread of the bee and all of the representation from that is just stunning. How did you decide that you were going to have this beekeeper? Why were the bees going to be so important to the story?
Right. This is interesting because so I decided that Nuri was going to be a beekeeper very, very randomly. I literally just woke up and went, "Oh, he's going to be a beekeeper." I don't know why.
Maybe were you dreaming about it? Or?
I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know. The element with the keys, I did actually dream about, and that's why I included the keys. And again, I won't say more about that. But with the bees, I don't know. I just woke up and thought, "Wow, he's going to be a beekeeper." And so what I did is I started researching beekeeping in general, and also beekeeping in Syria. And I did a lot of research, and I wanted to find out what had happened to agriculture in Syria because of the war, and all sorts of things. And I came across an article about a man called Dr. Riyad Al-Sus. You can find him on the internet. He's absolutely amazing. And he was a refugee. He's so interesting. He's such a wonderful man. I found him, and he was a refugee from Damascus. He was a professor at Damascus University, professor of agriculture, and he came to the UK as a refugee and went to the north of England in a place called Huddersfield and set up a project called the Buzz Project, where he teaches refugees and refugees and job seekers how to keep bees. So I contacted him on Facebook, and I said, "Oh, I love what you're doing, and it's amazing, and this is what I'm doing, and could we please be in contact? I have lots of questions." And he contacted me that evening, and he said, "My dear Christy," that's what he always calls me, and he said, "How about we talk on the phone?" So I spoke to him on the phone. He invited me to meet him and his family and to meet the bees. So I made a trip from London to Huddersfield.
You immersed yourself in the bees.
Exactly, and I remember when I went to his garden, because he had bees in the apiaries, but he also had some beehives in the garden. He said to me, "I don't have any protective gear, so we'll go and see them without the protective gear." I was a bit scared, but there's something about him. He's like really trustworthy.
You trusted him, right? Yeah.
Oh, totally. He's just got this presence. If you look him up, you'll see what I mean. There's a real presence. He has a real presence. He's like, "You're not going to die. I'm here. Everything's fine."
Yeah, so you trust it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it all worked out. Here you are. Yeah.
But there was a bit, this bit really inspired me because I stood there with what felt like thousands of bees around me. And he said, "Put your hand over your eyes," and I did. And I just stood there and I listened to that sound of the bees and the smell of the honey and the flowers, and they were all around me. I just stood there really silently. And that experience I then put in the novel because it's Mustafa who introduces Nuri to beekeeping, because Nuri is like, his dad owns a fabric shop and he's supposed to take over this fabric shop. This isn't a spoiler. This is right at the beginning, I think.
Yes.
And he's supposed to take over this fabric shop, and he doesn't want to, and he wants to be a beekeeper. And Mustafa introduces him to beekeeping. So the first time Nuri met the bees, I used that experience. I went back because I'd already started writing a novel. Went back and kind of added all this experience that I had, added it to Nuri's experience of being introduced to the bees.
You layered it in there like the honeycomb that the bees are hanging out in. There's such a magical element to the bees and the way they work together and what they create. It's an amazing system. I read a little bit about them through the years, oddly enough, through reading different novels where bees are front and center. There's just something about it. So reading the way Nuri learns to just stand still and not be fearful, and that you were able to take your own experience and share that into his character is again, I see the way you are a method author. Just like
exactly.
working your magic. And then I'm thinking of like this honey dripping all over that pastry at the beginning of our conversation. And just like your beautiful story, it all ties together so gorgeously. And I just have come to love these characters. And this book is I'm just so excited. There's nothing like finding a book that you connect to so deeply and you just want to share it with everybody. And it's just out now, and it's The Beekeeper of Aleppo. And Christy Lefteri, this is such a treat. I wish you weren't on the other side of the pond there. So I
know.
I hope to get to see you when you come to the States or I go there. I mean, hey.
Oh, I hope so. That would be lovely. And we can have some sweets.
Absolutely.
I want to dough balls.
Yes. Yeah. I want to go to that Syrian breakfast. That's what sounds so.
Oh, if you come to London, that's amazing. What we'll do.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm making a date right here. I think that this is, again, a book for our times and a time to really understand where people are coming from and the trauma. I mean, so you saw a lot of that, right? I mean, how did you deal with that? You're there to help. You're in Athens. What's that? What can you offer? People that have been through that kind of traumatic experience.
It's really difficult because so the first year that I was there, what you can offer is safety. And routine. And I think that's the important thing. It's like what I was saying before about the tea and biscuits. It was such a simple thing that I was doing. I was just giving women and children tea and biscuits. But sometimes you have to say, this is all I can do, so I'm going to put my heart into this. And when they were having showers, I was giving them fresh towels, giving them cream. You know what we were saying before about those little things in life? Just some lavender cream or some rose-flavored some rose-scented cream.
Yes.
Just these little things, or playing with the children. But it was very chaotic, and I noticed. So well, I didn't get a chance to speak to people then to hear their traumas. I wasn't supposed to. This was meant to be a safe space for them. But I saw things. I would. Once I realized I was going to write the novel, I interviewed people in the square. Once I got that feeling that I wanted to write it, I would interview Victoria Square where the centre was. I'd go out in the evenings and interview people, ask them, can you talk to me? Can you tell me a story? And if they wanted to speak, I would speak to them and ask them if I could record it or make notes, that sort of thing. But when I was in the centre, I just I absorbed what was happening. Like, for example, there was a woman that came in and she had a little baby who had just been born. I think he was about 4 weeks old, and he was absolutely tiny. Yeah. And she couldn't breastfeed. She was so traumatized she just couldn't breastfeed. And the little baby, he would not accept the formula. So everyone was worried that he wasn't going to survive. Yeah. But then what could you do? What could we do? We just sat next to her. We held the baby. We talked to her. We gave her tea. What can you do? That question, it's the question that's in your mind. What can you do?
Yeah, what can you do?
Can do is just be there for that person and just kind of sit with them and just be there. And so we gave her like milk and tea and water and biscuits, and we sat with her. And then as the days went on, she just started to communicate with people more, interact more with the other women. And eventually I remember the day where she kind of pressed her breasts and milk was coming out, and the baby started to feed. And I think there was a bit of milk coming out already, so it wasn't like the baby wasn't having any milk at all. But it was such a struggle. It was a huge difference. I mean, it was so huge, because before that we were really trying to give the baby formula. So then the baby's eyes started opening, and he just was connecting with the world, and I used that experience, that story, that image stayed in my mind so much that I included it in the novel when Nuri and Afra are in Bediondoareos in the park in central Athens, in the camp there. And there's a woman who's unable to breastfeed, and one of the volunteers is helping her. So that came directly from witnessing. You see, and but there's so many. I saw how children, when they came in to begin with, they were so traumatized. Sometimes they couldn't play, and then as the days and the weeks went on, I could see that they were playing differently. It just kind of got me realizing that just being there for people, these interactions, these small communications, these routines, this sense of, subtle security. I can't say a proper security, because they were living in the camp still, but there's still something about being in a place where you can develop friendships and bonds. And
those connections. I mean, people, exactly. That's life, and that brings everybody to that level of, these things that sustain us, but to witness the change over weeks, and to be there to see that, and to share all of this in this beautiful story that people will read, talk about, and gain empathy and realize the power of story. And it's so evident here in this beautiful novel, The Beekeeper of Aleppo. Christy Lefteri, this is such a treat to talk to you. Before I let you go, if you'd like to share a title or two that you've read recently, the listeners always want to know what the writers are reading.
Oh, interesting question. Well, I'll tell you what I'm reading at the moment.
Sure.
Right now. Okay. I'm reading a book called The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa.
Great title. The Housekeeper and the Professor?
And the Professor, and it's absolutely beautiful. I am really enjoying it. It's a kind of quiet, subtle story that gets it's building on me, but deeply. It's just I can't.
Love it.
I look forward to opening the pages again and going back into the world of these characters.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the best. That's what you were saying earlier, that you're savoring, and that I've explained that through the years of hosting Reading with Robin. Something that comes up often. That's the mark of a book, that when it's there waiting for you, and you can't wait to dip back in and be there. That is
and
the
just
best.
be there. Exactly.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
You're taken somewhere else. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. We bookish people connect on that level. And we also have 3 copies that we're giving away. So people go to Reading with Robin on Facebook, and this will be posted there with the giveaways. So 3 lucky winners will receive a gorgeous copy of The Beekeeper of Aleppo. And I look forward to meeting you here or there, but we're getting that Syrian breakfast at some point. And, this was such fun. Thank you so much for appearing on Reading with Robin.
Lovely. Thank you. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's installment of the Reading with Robin podcast. As always, our full-length podcasts will be available right here on robincall.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to having you over next week when we chat with our next featured guest. Have a great week and happy reading.